So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is the usual line to start the Home Gemmology webinar supported by CIBJO, the World Jewellery Confederation, and co-hosted by Edward Johnson, directly from London. I'm on my vacation and I'm on a very mysterious place with a nice fossilized limestone from the Jurassic or Cretacic behind me. And the topic today is angel skin coral. Angel skin is a trade name of a particular kind of light pink coral that Vincenzo Liverino, the president of the CIBJO Coral Commission, the very special guest that we have today, he will talk to us about that after I give a very short introduction to the subject, to the nomenclature, and to the terminology and CITES listing of one of the species that we call angel skin in the market. I hope Enzo Liverino is with us today. Enzo, if you are there, please say hello.
Ciao Enzo, just unmute if you can, Enzo.
Thank you to Edward Johnson and Rui to organize this webinar.
Just briefly, before we get started with this today, where are you today, Enzo?
I am in my museum in Torre del Greco in Naples, and all of you are will be welcome to come in Torre del Greco.
Great.
To visit my museum, and why not also to share with me the fantastic folded pizza that we make in Torre del Greco.
We look forward to that. If only Rui could be with you eating that pizza, he could be putting on a little bit more weight. But anyway,
yes.
We don't know where he is and what food he's eating. He might tell us later.
I don't know where is Rui, but you see, I'm worried about him because in Portugal they don't have our pizza.
No.
So I hope that you and Rui will come soon here to test it.
Yeah.
And then we can even make some webinar on Neapolitan pizza.
That would be good. That would be
There is a lot of things to say on it.
Absolutely. Listen, Enzo, thank you so much. We're going to come back to you later, okay? But you hang tight there in your museum. I'm sure you're safe, but thank you for joining.
So without further ado, thank you very much, Edward. I'm going to share my screen and kickstart this webinar on, or this presentation on angel skin coral. Let me just push this button. And today we will briefly talk on a few subjects like coral as a biogenic gem material, precious coral, species, what are the species that we call precious coral, and we will focus on one, Pleurocorallium elatius, that is typically the one that we relate to angel skin. And also we will discuss the very rare albino variety of this species that give rise to the one that we call the angel skin. And we will cover a little bit of identification challenges and understanding this trade name. And also, because this is important, we will also discuss the CITES listings of precious corals, particularly this one. So what are corals? This is a very complex definition of corals, but this is it. Scientifically, this is what they are. And the ones that are of interest in the jewelry industry, they are made of biomineralized calcium carbonates. They are not soft, they are quite hard. And of course, there are a lot of other organic molecules that go along with that. And because if it is made by biomineralized calcium carbonate, we call it by a biogenic gem material. And I keep insisting on this, but this is important. Probably all of us as gemology students in the past, we have heard about organic gems, right? But the word or the expression organic gemstones is not used anymore at CIBJO, because it became with a very specific meaning, and the CIBJO now recognized biogenic gem material as a more collective and correct name of incorporating all the gem materials that have a biological origin, because that's what biogenic means. The past webinar, we addressed this very topic. So when, if you care to watch the video, you will see exactly that. Of course, you watch the video when it becomes available, not yet. So organic, that's the name that we used to use many years ago, actually has a very specific meaning. It's a collective name for a gem material of biological origin, but that it is essentially composed of organic matter or organic molecules, like tortoiseshell horn, black coral, which is a common coral, and also vegetable ivory. This definition in the old days ruled out pearls, mother of pearl, shell, and precious corals, because, as I said, precious corals, and by the way, the other materials, they are biomineralized calcium carbonate. And because of this, we call today the corals biogenic gem material. This is the most important definition that we have for bio gems, if you wish. So, and what about precious coral? Now, boring terminology, but I need to define the terms before I go on. A precious coral is a biogenic gem materials, but CIBJO defines precious coral in this way. I make a parenthesis here. If you are biologists or if you read biological literature, you will see that a biologist defines precious coral as any species of coral that can be used in decorative arts, including jewelry. But the World Jewellery Confederation, CIBJO, has a different definition for the expression. For us, in the jewelry industry, the expression precious coral has a very specific meaning. And it's only the ones that have a hard skeleton and that belong to a very specific group, the Corallidae family, specifically on 3 genus, the Corallium, Pleurocorallium, and Hemicorallium. This is quite technical, but this is just to clarify that in the jewelry industry and in biology, the same expression, precious coral, has a different meaning. So make sure you know that when you read the papers on the literature. For us in the jewelry industry, we have 8, I mean, we can have 9 or 10, it doesn't matter that the specific detail, but in general, we recognize less than 10 precious coral species, and those are the ones that you see on your screen right now. As the other corals that in the jewelry industry, we don't consider precious corals, but the biologists, they do recognize as precious corals in their own lexicon, in their own terminology. Those are the ones that you see on your screen right now. There are a vast number of species that can be used for decoration, but not recognized as precious corals by the jewelry industry. The word coral itself is a collective name that englobes, that collects more than 7,000 species of living organisms, and not all of them are used in decoration. In fact, the vast majority of them are not used at all in decoration, particularly the reef corals, the corals from the reef barriers. They are not used in jewelry, maybe except one species that is currently protected, blue coral. That's the reef coral species that you might still encounter in antique jewelry. What actually people don't realize that the bigger threat to the coral universe is actually the aquarium industry, not the jewelry industry. And so please make sure that next time you listen terminology in the jewelry industry, you understand that precious corals is one thing. Common corals are corals used in decoration, but not on the same group as precious corals. And you have the reef building corals. That's a totally different reality for us. But because both corals in decoration and corals in nature have the same name, then we might not have a problem, but we might have a communication issue, because when people listen to the word coral, they understand that we are referring to reef corals, and in jewelry we don't use them at all. Make sure you remember that. This is a very graphical way of demonstrating or showing the taxonomic distribution, or the phylogeny, if you wish, of precious coral species. And as you see, precious coral is a very small group, and then you have all the other ones. So this is to make sure that you understand that it's a very, very small group that we are addressing here. And mostly you have 8 species, which you have here on your screen. It can be more, it can be 9, it can be 10, it doesn't matter so much. But today we will only address Pleurocorallium elatius. And why? Because this is the very species that occasionally may occur in the very specific color that the trade calls angel skin, pelle d'angelo, peau d'ange, pelle d'anjo in Portuguese, and many other names that my pronunciation doesn't let me say. But before we discussed angel skin, let's discuss the species. Pleurocorallium elatius, previously known as Corallium elatius, is the biggest of precious corals. It can be really huge and has many trade names like Momo, Cerasuolo, and Satsuma. And those are the trade names that you usually see this coral being mentioned on the trade. It occurs mostly in Japan and Taiwan at very big depths compared to the other corals that are more up in like in the Mediterranean is under 50 meters. This is below 150 meters up to 300. And the fan size, it's quite big. I mean, you can have 35 centimeters, but even bigger. And the trunk diameter can be 25 millimeters, 2.5 centimeters, about an inch, which is considerable for a coral, much bigger than the Mediterranean species. And this is the kind of big chunk that Enzo will show this one in a few minutes at his museum in Torre del Greco near Naples in Italy. It's really big, this special coral. What there is a special thing about this species is when you look at these really tiny pieces of elatius, you can look at the very characteristic that might help you identify. And this is a very characteristic white core that is also called romantically the white soul of the coral. Like you see when you have a trunk, a tree, sometimes in the middle you have a different color. Like in an ebony tree, for instance, you have a different color in the inside and in the outside of the tree. Here is the same. Typically in elatius, you have a white interior and a colored outside. And you can spot it really well in the rough, in the raw, sometimes not that evident in the worked material. If you look at this image, if you look carefully, you can see the white spots. And this is one of the ways that you can, if you have experience, you can have an idea and build an opinion on a visual identification of precious coral species. Not easy. Sometimes elatius also have an irregular and kind of worm-like structure, and Enzo, he will show you exactly why some elatius has this kind of texture with holes. Actually, it's because it was dead when it was harvested, and this is really interesting. This is another example, but this is a quite good quality material. And now, I show you here why the hell in a coral presentation I show you crocodiles. Not because this is sponsored by Lacoste, no. This is because you see here a pair of crocodiles, one in which is black and one that is totally white. And the totally white one is albino. As we know, some animals, even humans, When we don't have the melanin, the pigment, we become totally white, albinos. And this is what happens to Pleurocorallium elatius in nature and with some other species, but particularly to this one, that if it is an albino variety, then you have a different color. And the angel skin, what we usually call angel skin in the trade, is a collective name, typically, not only, but typically of albino Pleurocorallium elatius. And this is the glorious color, the pink, light pink color that you usually see on this type of coral that has captured the imagination of so many designers like Bulgari, for instance, that you see on your screen, and has become quite popular, particularly in the US, where the pink color of this coral is quite popular. And albino coral is very, very rare. It's not common. You don't find it in big quantities. Only occasionally do you have an albino coral of this species that has quality to be worked as a gemstone. Otherwise, you don't use it. And this is the kind of raw material, but you will see better ones later on as we go along. If you care to look again, do you remember the characteristic that we've shown for the Pleurocorallium elatius in terms of color distribution? The white cores, the white interior, or the white sole. Look carefully, and you can see that as well here, because it's the same species, so it's expected that you can find also in angel skin, in elatius angel skin, the very same morphological characteristics. That when you have a cabochon, like the one you see on the ring, you turn the cabochon upside down and you see the color not in the top, but in the back. Smart. And this is, for me, the most beautiful representation of Pleurocorallium elatius, from Momo color, which is light pink or salmon color, if you wish, to the very light angel skin. And this is absolutely glorious. And here you can see the gradation of color from the darker to the lighter. But this is all the same species of coral, all elatius. And because it's important that we understand the word angel skin, other species like rubrum, like Corallium rubrum from the Mediterranean, occasionally, not occasionally, really very, very rarely, they can occur also in pink, in light pink. And here you see a few horns, typically Napolitan horns, made out of Mediterranean coral, and they are not red as expected, they are pink. And again, this is probably the most famous example of pink Mediterranean coral. This is a 19th century piece, and all those little highly decorated leaves made in Naples area, they are very rare Mediterranean coral angel skin. But we don't call it angel skin. Actually, locally, it's known as bella. It's an Italian word that stands for beautiful. The vast majority, although, is actually Pleurocorallium elatius. This is the most important species that we see as angel skin, although you may find the same color in Mediterranean, sometimes even more rare in Japonicum. Elatius is the one we look for when we look for angel skin coral. So as an exercise, and also to demonstrate that there are some other precious corals that look like angel skin, but they are not. Look at this necklace. Is this angel skin? What about this, I think, bracelet? Is this angel skin? And this one, is this angel skin? So we see here 3 examples of light pink corals, but only one is angel skin, the others are not. And the only one is this. The others, the first one, this here, the bracelet, the little bracelet is midway coral, and the one in the bottom with the variegated color is deep sea coral. But if you are not experienced, you see light pink and say, okay, angel skin, but it's not. Angel skin is very specific. It's very complicated to understand. The angel skin mostly is Pleurocorallium elatius. Beware that some other coral species, they may look like elatius, they may look like angel skin, and they are not. So you must get experience, or you must trust your supplier to make sure that you, when you buy pink coral, you are buying, if you want to buy angel skin, which is very expensive, you know exactly that you are buying elatius. Of course, if you get experience, the better thing is you go into the rough, and you learn how to look into the luster, into the color distribution, into the hue, the secondary colors, so you can have your brain used to visual identification. But one thing is to identify raw coral. The other thing is to identify fashion color, much more difficult, make no mistake. Because a few species of precious coral are listed in CITES, and Pleurocorallium elatius is listed on CITES. Let's first also explain what CITES is. In the previous webinar, we've entertained on this topic, so I'm going to be really quick on this. CITES is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Fauna and Flora, and it's usually mentioned to as the Washington Convention, that was gathered in 1973 and started regulations in 75. And it has 3 levels of protection: Appendix 1, 2, and 3. So let's see why, what does it mean actually when you see Pleurocorallium elatius, the angel skin, for example. If you are in Europe and you want to export or to send a sample to America, even to GIA for testing, for example, you need a CITES document. That's because elatius is listed on CITES. But when people listen to CITES, it's like, whoa, CITES, CITES, and they are afraid because CITES means, oh, dangerous, oh, forbidden. Not exactly. Let's see what CITES means. Appendix 1. Appendix 1 actually is the more restrictive, are species that are really threatened, that they need to be controlled, and the trade is totally forbidden except for some very specific circumstances like scientific research, for example. And a few gem materials are listed on Appendix 1 of CITES, and here on your screen you see a couple of them. The hornbill ivory, for example, from Indonesia is one of them. Appendix 2, not that as restrictive, and it means that the species are not necessarily threatened with extinction, but if nothing is made, they might become so. So this is a kind of a list where the species that are there are not necessarily threatened, but they must be seriously controlled in the numbers and in the exportations. So they are controlled, and you have rules. You have strict rules into the quantities or the territories or the amounts that you can harvest or fish from those species. And here you have so many of them, like the hippo, I never know how to pronounce, Edward Johnson's favorite animal, hippopotamus. It's protected under Appendix 2. And then you have Appendix 3, which means that the species are not endangered, so they are not facing extinction, but a certain country, a certain party of CITES has asked the group of countries of CITES to elect those species as species for monitoring. For when they cross a border, you need a document, so you can document and you can have numbers and statistics on how much it's being traded over borders. And this is particularly to better understand if you need resource management policies. Let me give you an example. Mediterranean coral, for example, because both the European Union and African countries had made strict regulations into how to fish and where to fish the Mediterranean corals. The species has never entered into CITES because there is nothing to be done, because the governments, they are doing their own job very well. But when you don't have enough information, a country might ask for that information, and so the species is listed on the Appendix III. And the main objective is the monitor, is not to forbidden, it's just to collect information. And here you have several gem materials, including the Pleurocorallium elatius that we are entertaining today. This is a nice example by the Portuguese José Manuel Rosas, my favorite Portuguese jeweler, if I can say so. So in conclusion, and this is it from my part, then it will be Enzo entertaining you. Precious coral is a biogenic gem material. Don't say organic anymore. It's a biogenic gem material. And precious coral is not the same as coral. Coral is a collective name. Precious coral in the jewelry industry means a very specific group of species, 8 to 10 species in total. Angel skin is a trade name. So it's not a type of coral, it's a trade name, but in the most instances is the albino variety of Pleurocorallium elatius, and this is Latin. So if you want to say this word, you must know Latin. Pleurocorallium elatius, the species, is listed on the Appendix III of CITES, and you must know exactly what it means. It means that you need a documentation if you want to cross borders with it, so CITES can have statistics, numbers, so they can protect the species better. So it's a positive thing to be on Appendix III after all. And also, sometimes angel skin, the most common angel skin, the elatius, can be confused with midway coral, with deep sea coral, with miso coral. And to do so, and to separate, you need experience, or you need to send it to a laboratory for a DNA testing that you can have available on the Italian Gemmological Institute in Milano, in Danat in Bahrain, also at the SSCF in Switzerland. So a lot of laboratories, they already offer this kind of services. And I think that's it, Edward Johnson. I'm finished. Edward is sleeping, I'm sure.
No, I'm still here. I'm still here. Are you finished? Are you sure you're finished?
Yes.
Yeah, usually you can talk for an hour or so, but today you're restricting us to just a quick one.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Rui, you're behind the camera now, right? You're the professional BBC cameraman.
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you. Enzo, let me ask you a quick question before we have a look around the museum again.
Yes.
It's fascinating when Rui puts up those 3 pictures of different types of pink coral, but only one of them is Corallium elatius, and that, the angel skin. So when you start out as an expert who's worked in it for all your life and generations before, how do you start to explain to somebody to learn and appreciate the difference between elatius and other types of coral?
Well, the only word that can explain what is the angel skin is the rarity of the color. As Rui said, angel skin is an albino color of the elatius. Let's say that maybe in 1,000 pieces, in 1,000 pieces of elatius, normal red that you can see here, big pieces, only one maybe you found in angel skin. And sometimes this is a curiosity, sometimes you found a piece of coral that start as an angel skin, as albino, and then later on grow as with the color of elatius. So here is pink, and here is red.
Yeah.
This is very rare. So as you see here, there are some coral that are more light, and that means it is more rare, and someone who are dark pink, and the value of between the light and the darker is made from the jeweler. I remember when I was young, and for us, the real angel skin was like this color, very pale, very pink pale. And then I was like 12 years old, and very often used to come here Mr. Paolo Bulgari, who was very close friend of my father.
Who was that? Sorry, Paolo Bulgari, did you say, from the family?
Yes, from, yes. And he's still a good friend of mine now. I met last year in Geneva. And he's fan of coral. He liked very much the coral. And let's say 6 years ago, he decided that can be more easy to sell this kind of angel skin. The one who is at a limit point between the dark pink and the pale pink.
Right.
Then in the last 5-6 years, because of another fan, Christina Lang-Assel from New York, that she liked very much the pale, the very light. So she started to promote in the United States this kind of necklace, this kind of color.
Pelle.
And Enzo, may I ask, what about the Japanese words boké and magai for this coral? Is there a difference between them?
I can tell you a very short story about the name of boké. The name of magai, I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly the translation of the terms magai, but I know very well the meaning of a boké. My grandfather, who used to go to Japan by sea, it takes 4 or 5 months to go there. When he went there to buy momo, he used to put on side the light one. In Europe, was already appreciated, the angel skin, but the Japanese, they don't know. So when he selected the material, he put on side the pink. And at the end, the Japanese fishermen, they asked to my grandfather to buy also that one. I say that one has no value because it's not white and it's not red. It's shemo. How to say shemo in English?
Shemo.
Stupid. It's stupid color. So boké in Japanese, the meaning is shemo. Is stupid. And remain the word boké.
But Enzo, we also saw today that we have also angel skin from other species, not only elatius, right?
Yes, I can show you some piece from the.
And ladies and gentlemen, if I fall, It's because I'm going backwards.
I can show you a beautiful set, a beautiful pair of earring and a brooch made from Corallium rubrum, with the style of so-called frutte and foglie, leaves and fruit.
Oh.
This style is typically the jewelry of made in Naples a couple of centuries ago, because in that time we have Naples as a kingdom under Gioacchino Murat and his wife Carolina Bonaparte, and they like very much coral, so they support, they sponsor, they make a special law for the coral people. They even opened the first school and the first factory into the Greco to help the coral dealer.
When was that, Enzo?
The beginning of 18th century, 1800, up to 1820.
Okay, 1800 to 1820.
Then we can see another window, some other angel skin. This is the China window, the old pieces and the new one. That means this is those pieces from 100, 150 years, and those one is 30, 40 years. And we have Nepal, Tibet, Afghanistan, Mongolia.
Wow, that ratio is amazing.
Yes. This is my favorite pieces. This is a jacket made with the Shaka coral in Mongolia. And on it there are some turquoise, some shell, and the famous Z, the black brown with the white spot stone, so called the Z, and very rare, very, very expensive, used from the Buddhists. For them is a means of lucky. And as a curiosity, I can tell you, they don't know the origin of this stone. They found a very, very small mine near on the top of the Himalaya, but very small. We are talking about a couple of centuries ago. Then when they found, they cut it in that shape, but they understand it was agate, but it is originally from sea. So they don't know how can be that from the sea, this kind of stone come up to the Himalaya. So the answer was easy. Who bring them up to the Himalaya? Buddha. Only Buddha can do it. And they start to believe that those stone was holy stone. For Chinese, for Buddhist people, they are still holy stone, like mine. And this is particular because it has two eyes, 1 and 2, and they are inside the Eden, the paradise.
Oh. That material is coral on your bracelet?
No, this is agate.
Agate, sorry, I was confused.
This is small Z, and this is a special piece of Z.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Okay.
Let's come back to angel skin. In the Japanese window, we found two fantastic roses. One with a very, very beautiful color, and another one is very big, and the quality of carving is unbelievable. It's amazing. And then we have another.
And by the way, Enzo, sorry to interrupt. What about this huge sculpture? Is this also elatius?
These are all elatius. These are also elatius. And following also the respect that the Japanese they have for coral, they used to carve following the shape of the branch without to lose weight. And sometimes when they have a very long branch, they carved to make a chain. So that means that this one was one piece.
Wow, so the chains, all of that was from one piece of coral out of the ocean, and all carved.
And in this other case, they carved two figurines attached between them with a chain, always one pieces.
Wow.
Then we have the real angel skin. Those are three carvings made maybe 100 years ago in Japan.
Mm.
What about this one, Enzo? Is it elatius too?
This is a special kind of elatius. We call it Scotch color.
Scotch as in Scottish, as in Scotland?
Yeah, doesn't come from Scotland. But is elatius completely white with red spot. This kind of coral is between elatius and the conojoy. Conojoy is the poor white fished near Vietnam.
Mm.
And then
we've got some comments on the quality of the cameraman, saying that it's very good and steady today.
But it's expensive. It's very expensive. Do like this. After I don't pay you. Here we have some three kind of angel skin. One is this. The particularity is that is a choker.
Mm.
All the same size. This is something that cannot made again. Cannot. In all the history of my company that started in 1894, those necklace is the only one my family has made.
So Enzo, sorry, Edwards. What is the size? Can you put your hand next to the to the bead so people can appreciate the size?
Wow. Okay. Wow.
And so, and the important thing here is because all are the same size and the same color.
Yep. Over 15 millimeter, over 20 millimeter, maybe?
Not 20, 16 millimeters.
16, okay.
16 millimeter. And here we have a magai necklace.
Magai means that it's not angel skin, is it?
It's not angel skin, it's between angel skin and momo, cerasuolo, normal color of cerasuolo. We call it the cerasuolo. I don't know if you said before in your presentation that cerasuolo comes from Neapolitan way to call the cherries. We say ceras.
Rui, the sound is a bit muffled. If you put your hand over the microphone.
Yes, I did.
Okay, we're all learning. We're all learning.
Okay, Enzo, carry on.
And then here we have what we suppose is the biggest necklace never made in angel skin.
Wow.
It's 500 grams of angel skin. And the biggest size is 32 millimeter. But those two are never-ending finish necklace, because when we work angel skin, if we found some pieces that can be matched with those kind of necklace, we do it. Like in this case, we have made the two, but doesn't match very well with that one. So we keep on site. And then maybe when we work again, we will see if we can make longer or bigger.
So let me ask a question. That necklace, for example, I mean, was that from your production, or did you buy that in from other dealers to have in the room?
No. Since from ever, we only sell product that we have produced.
Right.
We never buy. The only thing we buy is the raw material. We produce everything 100% in our factory.
It's a stunning necklace. I mean, it's so big. 52 millimeters, you said, the largest?
32.
32, thank you. I was a bit confused. 32, still massive, just incredible.
Those windows are the new piece of art, mostly made from very famous carver in Torre Greco, was Carlo Parlati, in combination with a very famous art jeweler in Milano, Romolo Grassi. And here we have one subject that the meaning is the mother, and the smaller one in angel skin, meaning the son. And the title is La fame nel mondo, or they don't ask too much. They just need a few. So let's come back to
we are getting the same questions about more information about the museum and where it is, if people can visit, and how they learn more about the museum. So maybe we can address that later, but just to let you know, people are interested to know that this is a private museum belonging to Enzo Liverino's company, Liverino 1894.
Yeah. And yes, it's in Torre del Greco, which is really near to Naples. It's about 15 kilometers. It's a 15 minutes driving from Naples. And the museum is private, and you must make an appointment. If you want, you can send me €200 and I talk to Enzo so you can let you in.
Thank you for advertising your services so discreetly there, Rui.
So I'm going to pass the camera back to Enzo, because he's about to show you how to prepare raw coral. And I'm sure that we have a lot of Q&A, and then I will be back to my post, and we can resume the Q&A with Enzo. But before that, I think it's a privilege to see how coral raw is prepared prior to polishing.
Thank you. Yes, we do have lots of questions, so we'll look forward to getting to those when we can, but this is nice. Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Enzo.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, let me thank, so I saw that in the participant there is my close friend, Ponsawat. Ponsawat is a member of our Coral Commission, and because of her, she supported me in the beginning when we was in CIBJO. We was just a coral working group, and then she pushed me to be a Coral Commission, and we spent a week in Bangkok together to prepare the documentation, the board, everything. So it's thanks to her that maybe now we are here. Thank you, Ponsawat. Now let's come back to the angel skin raw material. As I told you, we work exclusively, all what we sell is worked in the factory. So let me show you this. This is raw material. When we buy from the fishermen, we buy separately the so-called dead, that because outside is the skin is not clear like this, and supposing that some big fish or some earthquake in the deep sea has broken the coral who went on the rock, and this part is a living material. Sometimes this quality is even better than this, because when the coral died for let's say 7-8 years, inside becomes more homogeneous, so the color become more even and more easy to work. Now, one thing is very important is that the coral, you have to read the coral. You cannot cut the coral. The most important operation is the cutting. And to cut the coral can be easy, because the coral will tell you what he wants you to do. For instance, here, for sure, the basis, this was the part was attached to the seabeds, is close to the rock, but be a special rock, because not all kind of rock are good to let coral live. This happens in all parts of the world, in the Mediterranean, in Pacific, in Japanese area. So when you have to work, and that means cut the coral, you start first from the basis, where for sure you found some imperfection, and then you have to cut for like in this case, here there is one branch that went on this side, another one went in this side. So you are obliged to cut in the middle, and then cut again here, and then here. Then you can make another beads here. Here you have another branch who went on this side. So you have to cut in this way. From here you can make an heart shape, or you can make a button. From here you make another beads. From here the same story over here. You have to make an heart shape, or you can make a round button. And you can go on. You can found a piece like this part, for instance, is flat on one side. So here is more large, here is flat. The best way is that you cut longer, and you cut again here, and you make two gabochons. For sure one will be good. And then maybe the second one can be a little bit too flat. And that's it. Now you know my secret.
I think there's a bit more to know before you can produce the beautiful artwork that you produce, but thank you for that. So when you cut out the piece where the branch goes off, you still can use that, but you've got to cut away the bit where the branch met the main trunk. Is that right?
Right. We use everything from coral. We don't lose anything. Each part can be used until the very, very small piece. When it becomes so small that it cannot be worked, we sell it to India, where they make a powder, they mix with the menthol, and they prepare aphrodisiac.
Say that again. What do they use the powder for in India?
For aphrodisiac. How to say aphrodisiac?
Aphrodisiac.
Aphrodisiac. Exactly. So coral powder is sold as an aphrodisiac.
They break the small part to make aphrodisiac. They break in until it becomes powder. Basically, is a calcium carbonate, and they believe that is aphrodisiac, and for sure it works. You can try.
Okay, you're right to say that. And you know, while the two of you are sitting there, you know that the two of you, and Rui, especially you, have done so much for people's mental well-being over the past 3 months while we've all been in these difficult situations. We're not out of lockdown. We're not out of this cruel disease that is affecting so many people out of the world. We still have the same challenges. I heard Melbourne has gone back down into lockdown today, and even in Tel Aviv, and even in some cities in England, we're having challenges still with a second wave. So you guys have done so much to entertain people over the months. Please, I know you're having a joke and being close to each other, so I know that you're looking after your health, and you're in what we call in England a social bubble together there in Torre del Greco. But please take care of yourselves, and everybody else who's listening, please still take care of yourselves and follow the instructions from your respective governments to contain and control this virus, but also enjoy yourselves, and please continue doing business. And the important thing with these seminars and these webinars is to educate ourselves on what are the correct terminology and the correct nomenclature, the names that we use to describe these jewelry products that we prize and value so much, so that the consumer clearly understands the products that's being sold to them, and the consumer has confidence in jewelers and the jewelry industry. And the two of you are doing so much to improve that with Coral. And so I say thank you to you for your work for doing it.
On Coral, let me say also one thing, that this kind of information that we give, my hope is that this can help decision maker to make right things on coral, because there are still some country that they misunderstand, and they doesn't allow the precious coral to be imported, like is in Thailand or in China, because they misunderstand. They mix all the precious coral together with the Corallidae, and that's no good.
Okay.
So what we are trying is to try to let the decision maker people understand.
So Rui, two things to wrap up. You know, somebody is saying that the pool is getting cold, so you need to get there. And I have to go as well, because I have to go to a birthday party for my next door neighbor, who is 90 years old today. 90 years old. So I have to go because I have to celebrate with her with a glass of wine. Yes, and
in Portugal, it would be really strange for me to go to a 19-year-old party, but okay, it's England. The pubs are open. It's 90. I understand. I was just making a silly joke. So thank you very much, Edward. Thank you again, Enzo, and thank you that you are in there still with us after 1 hour and more of webinar. Thank you, CIBJO, the World Jewellery Confederation, for the support. And I hope to see you all again next Thursday for the Jewelry Voices, Jewelry Industry Voices webinar on sustainable pearls, and next Tuesday with Ellen Mollinsworth on A History of Gemstones. She's a terrific speaker. Don't miss that webinar. And I will be again, still on vacation. Now you know where I am, and I'm sure I will try to make the webinar from the pool.
Yeah, no, don't do that. We'll be too jealous. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Edward. Thank you, everyone, and see you next week, and keep safe. Bye-bye.
Ciao, everybody.